Welcome back to another episode of the Acastus Knight Asterius. I am Bry the Builder, and in this one we're going to be figuring out exactly how to get our pilot set up in the Carapace. So the cockpit itself is actually all set up and ready for LEDs. All that's good to go. So now I have to figure out how to get him set in here in order to still allow all of the LEDs to be run later. So he's going to have to be painted, right? This whole thing's going to have to be painted before the LEDs get finished and installed. So that's going to be coming up pretty soon, but I still need to be able to figure out where he's going to go in here even before I paint him, because he's going to get kind of manhandled while I adjust him. So my best thought at this point is to use some of this styrene tubing. It should be nice and strong for the length that I need it. And with just maybe 3, like 2 on the front and 1 on the back, it should give me plenty of adjustability. So just kind of need to figure out a basic length to start with. And then really, because inside the Carapace, the Carapace, I have some ability to adjust and create some sidewalls to extend up and fit up into the body so that you don't have a sight line through. So there is no need for this to be exactly positioned to begin with. I'll have some room to maneuver to adjust him. He's not going to go all the way back quite to touch the back wall there. So knowing that, right, he's just kind of in this space here where I've got quite a bit of room. So I guess I just have to kind of get started. Yeah, I'm a little afraid to do this, really, why I'm talking so much. So I guess it's nothing I can actually do wrong, right? Whatever happens, if I don't like it, I can essentially remove it from the bottom of this and start over. But I think the 3 tubing supports are actually going to work really well, I hope. And then at the end, once it's all figured out, I'll probably have to create some kind of side supports to make sure that it's centered in that space and doesn't have the ability to wiggle around when he's moved. And it'll still give me a total open cavity under there to deal with all the LEDs independent of this back piece. So let's get going. So we need to make that a little bit longer. We'll go right about there, and I'll have plenty of room to cut off any excess afterward. So there's the 2 for the front and then the 1 in the back. Because of that little step, the 1 in the back is going to have to be essentially that much longer than these 2. So that's about there. And if it's a little too long, it's going to give me a forward lean. So that for now shouldn't matter either. So we'll make it a little long. Well, okay. Well, we're going to pause for a second and recover that piece. Alright, now that I have recovered that piece from underneath one of my paint racks, I will make sure I don't just randomly try to blow the dust off the surface. Alright, so let's get these two shorter ones attached on the front. I'm not going to go all the way to the front corner. I'm going to kind of keep them back a bit. And yeah, that's clear. Okay, so way too tall to start with, but kind of knew that, right? That's good. We want it too tall, so we have room to adjust. So to get that underneath the skull here, we need to go down. Alright, so skull lines up right there. So we want to transfer that height to the bottom of that and cut it off. So it should be pretty straightforward. Let's cap up the super glue. Now, I am hopeful that as I cut these off, I'm not going to break the super glue joint. But if I do, I do. And I think we're going to try cutting those at the next stage here with the nippers. And seeing if hopefully I can get through those, again, without causing too much stress on the joint or on the connection. Okay, let's see. I think I'll need to take a little bit more, but let's start with 10 millimeters. That looks really close. From the top of the curve there to my mark, 10 millimeters should be plenty. We might just get it right on the first try here, so. Alright, I'm trying to use my matte lines here to see if can keep those in line. I think that actually looks really good. It's lined up with this set of dots. And I believe this bottom is level here based on this matte line. So in theory, that should actually line up, and hopefully the cockpit will sit level in here once it's in, but definitely room to adjust, right? I can always use a little bit of epoxy sculpt underneath to build that up if I need to make sure he sits level. That's what I was worried about a little. Okay, the tubing, well, that actually is a really flat cut, but I didn't hold the cutter at a great angle. So let's try that. I think that actually should be okay. And he sits nice and flat, but does he sit at the correct height? Well, yep, he is in a really good spot. So the bottom in there is a little messy in spots. So it seems like, based on some of the kind of crud that's down in there, for me just kind of using up bits of epoxy sculpt, there's a bit of putty in the way down there, but I think still though, with him in about the right spot. Let's check. Alright, based on all of that, I do want him farther forward, but really get a great view of him in there. So let's see if I can rotate back without tipping him over. I do want him forward a bit, so we'll have to make some adjustments, but height-wise, I think he's in a good spot. He's wobbly. So I do want to bring him forward though, so that means, well, that means I'm going to need to lose some of the inside of that ball there. But that's going to happen anyway as I attach this front piece and then drill a hole through for wiring for the LEDs and or fiber optic lines to get up to the skull or the face. So maybe I have to mount this. Well, no, I should be able to cut that off. All right, yeah, this won't matter. Let's try digging this out a bit. Wow. All right, as I was looking through my bits, I just found this piece of kind of insanity. It's a super coarse, if it'll zoom here. My focus will fix. No, it doesn't want to. Okay, well, if you can tell, it's actually a really, really coarse tooth bit. So I'm hoping it's going to actually grind that out pretty quick. Definitely took off some material, but I don't know if I got enough out down in the corner. Well, to get it to come forward, it's going to have to come up onto that edge then. I don't know that I want to do that. So, looks like we need to remove some more. I'm getting pretty close to going right through that opening, which actually is just fine. Try to knock as much dust out without blowing it out as possible. So that is pretty much paper thin right there. I think down here is still going to be a problem. That's a little curvy down there still. So that is going to keep that front edge from getting there. That's pretty good. It is definitely able to get a little further forward. But in order to get it really where we want it, we may have to cut the legs off a little and then build up a little putty underneath to actually bring it all the way forward. But we'll see. Let's put this together. Yeah, I can't, it won't stay forward where I want it. So I think I'm actually lean it a bit. Make the front legs just a little shorter. Still. Yeah, based on the distance, like right there between the front edge of the cockpit and the front edge of the carapace opening, I want him, and it pretty much means, and it's fine, doesn't change anything for us really at all, but this back panel is essentially going to be invisible. I'm not really going to be able to see it. He's definitely going to have to come farther forward, and I'm going to have to bring him up a little bit, so that's okay. I think, actually, I'll be able to build that underneath him with a bit of the epoxy sculpt with no problem. What I'm concerned, though, is that in the front here, I just don't quite have enough room for all the LEDs. So I have to find a compromise, but I want them back and up a little bit higher and definitely forward a little bit more. So I'm gonna the LED stems can be folded, so it should give the ones coming out of the front room to be able to bend. So if that's there, I have to look. I need to actually figure out exactly where I can pen those, though. So I don't know if I can pen them right where they enter the light, or if it's anywhere in that range. Because depending, I can definitely adjust where I set the LED. So, all right. Knowing that I can fold those means that I can actually get this a little bit closer and up a little bit higher without too much of an issue. But the cockpit still has to be removable so that I can paint it and deal with all of the LED installation afterward. So let's see. I need... We're going to add a little bit of epoxy sculpts. And I'll kind of figure out where the LEDs or where the cockpit's actually going to make contact with this. And then I will pull it back out, leave the epoxy sculpt in, to hopefully, let's add a little more, end up with a positionable, removable, replaceable, positionable pilot cockpit. Let's see. I don't want to set all the epoxy sculpt right in the dust, but those are pretty close. Love this stuff. It actually is great for so many things. It's two-part epoxy. Just mix it together in equal amounts. And as you mix it, you do want to make sure you get it really thoroughly mixed. I really haven't used green stuff much. This is pretty much the same thing. In my opinion, the downside with green stuff most of the time is that in that little kind of package that it has, where the two parts are always touching it hardens on you. So just kind of roll it out into a snake, ball it up again, do that a couple of times. And rip it apart. Now I'm gonna kind of just let that sit for a second, and I'm going to actually clean out the inside of the carapace and make sure it's as dust free as I can get it for the moment. Make sure everything sticks nice. Alright, that's a nice even color. Alright, I'm trying to make sure there's not too much banding in there. Alright, when it's even color, it should be pretty well mixed. Alright, so let's clean you up a little. That's about as so close to just pushing through. And I'm kind of figuring I'm gonna have to attach something inside that piece later. Maybe not, might go to the outside edge, but either way, I want to make sure it's pretty clean. Now, should be able to make just a little kind of ball for each leg. Or not. Doesn't want to stick, but that's good. If I know basically where it's going to go. Spent all that time cleaning all that up. No, I just added stuff back in, right? Yeah, that definitely puts him a lot closer to where I want him. Looking at that, there's still going to be a little bit of room. Looks good. Set this back in, see where that lines up. Now, visually, yeah, you're not going to be able to see it. Once it's lit, maybe, you might be able to tell there's a skull and a couple vents back there. And we're going to have to build some sidewalls. That should be pretty minimal. All right, he needs to be adjusted slightly. Let's just use this. Want to kind of pack it down in and make sure it has a good connection to the model, so that once it is more or less set, then hopefully, I'm just gonna kind of well, all right, then we're going to a little bit of water down there. All right, so he is positioned, I think, right where I want him. So looking in here, right, the attachment points down there actually look good. So once I'm ready to, I should be able to glue to those spots quite nicely. So for now, really like where he's sitting. So I'm actually going to carefully just remove him. And then the putty in there has markings in it where he should just sit back in and then line up exactly where I want him. And still have plenty of room for all the LEDs. So that should work out really nicely.